Welcome to Critical Junction, episode 59. I'm Mark.
I'm Luke.
I'm Joe.
And according to Polish journalist and author Igor Witkowski's 2000 book, The Truth About the Wonder Weapon, the Nazi Bell, or Die Glocke, is a purported top-secret experimental Nazi superweapon developed during the final years of World War II. Witkowski claims he discovered quote-unquote evidence of the bell while examining classified transcripts in 1997 from the trial of Jacob Sporenberg, an SS Gruppenführer, who was convicted of war crimes and executed in December of 1952. Witkowski claims he received the transcripts from an unnamed Polish intelligence operative, though he says he was unable to make copies of the records. The bell later became associated with Nazi occultism, as well as research into anti-gravity propulsion or free energy, though mainstream reviewers are skeptical that such a device ever existed, as the only supposed evidence for it is completely anecdotal and spurious at best. As the legend goes, Die Glocke is described as a device made out of a hard, heavy metal approximately 9 feet wide and 12 to 15 feet tall, having a shape similar to that of a large bell. The device is said to have contained 2 counter-rotating cylinders, which would be filled with a mercury-like substance, violet in color, codenamed Zerum 525, that was stored in tall, thin thermos flasks, a meter high, encased in lead. Later made popular by various documentaries and the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, the Nazi Bell has become a source of wild-ass speculation from UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists, with some claiming the bell allowed Nazi leaders to visit the moon or travel to the Aldebaran solar system. More outrageous, though, is the claim that the bell's ultimate purpose was to allow the Nazis to see across or travel through time. Consider, for example, the dubious link between the bell and the Kecksburg UFO incident. On December 9th, 1965, an acorn or bell-shaped craft crashed in the vicinity of the town of Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. While the craft was quickly recovered by the U.S. military, the event was still nonetheless observed by many witnesses, who note how the craft was adorned with strange inscriptions similar to those purported to be on Die Glocke, and how the craft was visibly similar to the Nazi weapon. According to some UFO conspiracy theorists, either this was the same device the Nazis had been secretly working on, brought to the U.S. during the final stages of the war as part of Operation Paperclip, and crashed during the test flight 2 decades later, or, more outlandishly, that the device had successfully traveled through time in the 1940s, only to crash land in Kecksburg when it arrived at its destination in 1965. So, was the Nazi Bell really a time machine, or was it meant to be some kind of weapon of mass destruction, the secrecy of which allowed conspiracy theories to spiral out of control? Did it even exist in the first place? These questions are weird and difficult to answer, but let's talk about that anyway, shall we?
Yeah, I looking into it a bit, finding out what the subject matter was 10 minutes before we all met up, I was able to read an article mentioning some of the stuff that the guy that was convicted of the war crimes, we'll call him Mr. War Crime Guy.
Mr. War Crime Guy.
Yep.
He has a name, you know. But we'll go with Mr. War Crime Guy.
He referred to it as, because it made I like the details, so I guess that's what I felt was most captivating about it. So he gave details like, when it spun it made a noise, so they actually referred to it as, like those working on it, I guess, referred to it as the beehive, or the spinning beehive, or something like that. I don't know if you
Right,
read any
yeah.
of that. And so I kind of like those details about the entire thing, and, you know, I hearing that the Nazis did experiments with something that was poisoning people and poisoning the environment around them, you know, doesn't really surprise me. They were pretty crazy.
Well, allegedly worked on it.
Right.
There's nothing beyond Mr. War Crimes Guy's testimony to act as evidence to support the existence of this.
Well, I mean, he's basically claiming that the people that did work on it were killed because they knew about it. So, of course, he would be the one remaining that would have any information.
How convenient.
How convenient. Why? Let's ask the question then, why would he be putting these ideas forward?
Because he was about to be executed for war crimes, and he was reaching for things to save his life. Maybe if I tell them that I was working on this super secret weapon, and I know the location of it, they'll want to keep me alive so I can tell them where it is.
I see. Okay, was he killed? Is that
he
like his life?
Yeah, he died in 1952, executed for.
They were like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
But the weapon!
But I got stuff.
Come on!
But this super secret tech!
knowledge.
It's a time machine! Huh?
Paperclip me!
Okay,
Come on!
Come on, just paperclip me!
Yeah.
Werner said this would work!
God damn it, Werner! But, like, there's no supporting evidence to back up this dude's story.
So everything we know about it actually is from this Witkowski guy, right?
Yeah.
Who just happened to read the transcripts of this war crimes guy.
He's no further evidence.
Yeah, he allegedly read the transcripts.
Right.
Because
We're not even sure he read them.
Yeah, the transcript, according to the story, the transcripts were given to him by an unnamed Polish intelligence guy who didn't allow him to make copies of these documents. So, we've got unconfirmed
Yeah, he
reports.
says he knows people in the Polish military.
Right. Who are they?
Yeah.
I can't name sources.
Well, yes, and of course, this does make sense. If there is
sounds
secret
an awful
error-
lot like Joseph Smith's story.
Yeah, it really does. So if there was a UFO equivalent of Mormonism, this would be it.
Yeah.
Because how can, everything is super convenient about this story, right? He stumbles upon these supposedly classified transcripts given to him by an unnamed intelligence officer who doesn't allow him to make copies, and he's the only one who has access to this information. There's no supporting evidence to back it up, and the only witness to this thing was executed. So...
Right. So it's like time travel Jesus to you guys kind of thing.
It's in the same category.
Jumping on his back, travel through time.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
But, I mean, the guy's details are very elaborate. He,
sure.
But
so is Joseph Smith's.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't get much more detailed than, inventing languages and everything.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Well, I mean, still, the idea that there would be secret
Technology
technology during wartime just, makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
So we're willing to put our minds there. Yeah, there's plausibility to these experiments, to some sort of bell shape. The witnessing of this craft being taken away, like some sort of fallen aircraft. Where was this?
That was in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania in 1965.
Oh, 65.
So,
So this was basically in with the rest of the weirdo UFO shit that was going on at that time.
Right, they made an association later, like a post hoc association to the bell, because the witnesses described the craft that crashed in Kecksburg as being the same
acorn shape.
or similar dimensions. It's bell shaped. It had inscriptions around it. So did the Nazi bell. So they're linking the two together and claiming it traveled through time or was taken to America by the expats Germans during Operation Paperclip, right? With no evidence to support any of these claims, especially not the time travel bit. Can you imagine if that were a thing?
Well, I do kind of like the description of how it functions, and what was it, like this red mercury stuff or something like that, because those concepts are conceptually something like spinning gravity or spinning magnets and some sort of
But are they though? Like how plausible are these claims? Like I haven't spoken to a scientist about it. Like I don't know, but
so this Witkowski guy, the way he describes it, like he denies that it's a time travel device or that it's a weapon. His theory about what he supposedly read was that it looks like it would be part of some kind of a propulsion device, so a propulsion
I would think
system.
Like an energy source of some sort
for one of those quote unquote UFO style things that the Nazis were trying to make.
It was only later that other UFO enthusiasts started glomming all these other ideas onto it.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, go on.
So his description of the way the thing works is that you've got these two cylinders, one inside the other, and in the outer cylinder is this red mercury we're talking about, and it gets spinning, and in the middle cylinder, I think there's supposed to be mercury as well, spinning in the opposite direction.
Of course.
and then on the outer circumference of this mercury stuff and on the inside of the middle pillar, there's like two sort of poles or whatever for them to be able to apply electricity or energy to it.
Okay.
And so what they first do is they get the mercury spinning in the thing, and then once it's already in motion, then they apply the energy to it, and they need like a huge amount of energy. And when they do that, it creates some kind of
time vortex.
Well, not time, because he doesn't believe the time thing, but it creates like a kind of a plasma torus or a plasma. What's the word? A vortex.
Oh yeah,
I got the vortex part right.
Yeah, yeah, and so this plasma vortex, he talks about like the kind of properties that these kind of plasma vortexes have, and he relates it to things like ball lightning and
like He-Man ball power kind of thing. Yes.
Yeah, and he says that this kind of like sustained plasma vortex has a weird property where it disconnects itself from the outside environment, so there's no like dissipation of energy that's going off of it, and there's no interference by the outside environment into it to slow it down or anything. So it's basically like the mythical perpetual motion machine.
Zero point energy.
It's zero
Right,
point
so
energy.
no sliders, Jerry Connolly stuff, just
No.
moving around fast. Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, and so what that means is that since it sort of disconnects it from the environment, I guess it must also disconnect it from the gravity of the environment.
Oh yes.
And so it becomes an anti-gravity device.
So I do love the idea of that, because of course if this technology did exist, it could be hidden by us. It would make logical sense capitalistically that we would hide that from the peoples, because we've got to milk the energy sources that we're making money off of and stuff like that. So to me it makes sense that energy sources or means of propulsion and stuff like that would be hidden from the people.
Well, I mean, it makes for some really good science fiction, and it makes for some really interesting speculation.
Yeah.
But
well, it kind of opens up that possibility of like maybe I could believe in this Santa Claus, like
maybe this is a Santa Claus that is attractive enough to me.
I remain unconvinced because there's been no sporting evidence to back up any of these claims, and even the most secretive of Nazi projects eventually were discovered. Like, we know the fucking weapons they were working on. There's nothing to indicate that they were working on any kind of weapon that even remotely resembles this quote-unquote Bell thing that Mr. War Crimes guy reported on.
Yeah.
So in terms of possible evidence, there's this thing called Hitler's Stonehenge, or some people call it like Concrete Henge, and it's this big...
Are you talking about the facility where near Wenceslaus?
It's in a place in southwestern Poland.
Yeah, that's the place I'm thinking of.
I think. Let me see. I've got the name right here.
This makes for some really interesting radio.
It's okay. So the spot is called Ludwikowice Kłodzkie in Silesia, Poland.
Okay.
So you can actually look it up on Google Maps, and you can actually get an idea of the size of this thing. It's basically a 10-sided circle, and it's just a big cement structure. So it's got like 10 pillars, and around the top, the pillars are connected.
Right. Haven't they suggested that it was probably something else?
They suggested that's where the Bell was test flown or tested at some point. It was featured in the Ancient Aliens bit. And it was also featured in those documentaries I was talking about earlier. Yeah. It was supposed to be the test bed for this.
Did they find Bigfoot, or?
I don't know. I don't know if they found Bigfoot. No.
He's hanging around on the bell. He's got the bell, man.
He's on the moon.
He's traveling in the bell somewhere.
Bigfoot is on the moon
him
in
and
the
Nessie.
bell.
They're still on their honeymoon in the bell.
Honeymoon.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, I mean, they say that it doesn't quite match like what you might assume it is just by looking at it kind of superficially. It kind of looks like those metal structures that they have for like those kind of water towers. You'll often see like the reservoir kind of rise and fall in these kind of ground level water towers. But I mean, they don't usually make those water towers out of this kind of cement thing. Another thing is that on the inside of it...
That would not float, ladies and gentlemen.
On the inside of it, there's spots where it looks like there could have been rigging for some kind of tethering so that you could...
Like from us, the tethers? The tether people?
No. I don't know what that means.
What are you...
So
you guys don't watch movies?
The tether people movies. Those no.
Never mind.
So they thought that you would test fly this Nazi bell thing right in the middle of it, but you would attach it with chains or something to the inside of this circle. And so that would keep it from like flying off. And
it'd be chained like Frank's face in Hellraiser with the chains going.
Oh, you do like movies.
I like that movie.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hellraiser.
Good short
Clive Barker
novella.
would like to sponsor the show.
It's a good novella, though. What is it called again? I always remember.
Hellbound Heart.
I always just think Telltale Heart. Oh, right. No, something else better.
Telltale Heart.
Yeah.
That's Poe.
So this thing...
Thanks, Gilles.
This thing is bullshit.
Oh, so, So also underneath this henge thing, this Hitler's Stonehenge, there's Nazi-era tunnels and stuff that they found, and there's apparently a huge network of tunnels like this that were just abandoned right after the war.
Yeah.
And this guy Witkowski or whatever, he talks a little bit about how that area was actually sort of a smaller Nazi work camp, like a small concentration camp. It wasn't a death camp, but it was they had like slave labor there, and they were the ones digging out the tunnels and supposedly working on this Nazi Bell project, and they were all, of course, killed afterwards. Anyone who worked on it would have been killed afterwards.
There's a lot of convenience in this story.
Yeah.
No one there to deny everything that he reported on. Like there are tunnels and secret camps all over the goddamn place.
Yeah.
Like the Nazis did some really weird shit. Like, that's factually accurate. They did some weird fucking shit.
It also makes sense that they would just kill them afterwards. Like they were killers. Like they were.
Sure, yeah. So he's trying to fit his narrative into like a really convenient fact of the matter.
Well,
like,
sure.
But like, there's nothing to support it, and that really bothers me. It just what bothers me more is that some UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists, actually believe this.
Yeah. Well, it's always weird when someone adamantly believes something that you can't prove.
Well, it's not even the fact that they adamantly believe it. It's just the fact that they believe it without question.
Yeah.
You know, they're not willing to examine the actual story from a critical perspective to see if it holds water. Yeah. You know, they just... it's weird and spooky, and it has to do with Nazis, and it happened a long time ago, so therefore it must be true.
Well, what did you feel was the most compelling information, I guess, concerning the bell for you, Mark?
I didn't find anything particularly compelling, but like you were saying earlier, the details about it.
Yeah, I like the beehive sound description. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah,
it's spinning made a sound. And
it's all told. All the little details put together make for an interesting story.
Yeah. The detail that I like the most, you like the beehive hum sound. Yeah. I like the reporting that apparently when you activated this thing, it would actually like melt the plant life and any other biological life around it.
It turns blood gelatinous and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
it
turns
crystallize certain plant things or whatever.
Yeah.
Tell it, Jill. Tell it.
Well, you guys have kind of done it for me. But
go, Jill, go.
It kind of reminds me of Indiana Jones and the Ark of the Covenant. You know, we're talking about like some kind of
melted off,
some kind of Nazi
face melter
secret that you open it up or turn it on and it melts your face off.
It's a Nazi face melter.
Yeah, Nazi face melter.
The first Nazi face melter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail, I guess.
That's some good stuff. That's some good tales.
Like the
tales of terror.
There's been a lot of strange and outlandish attributions to some of the stuff that the Nazis did. You know, like
what about this bit about the inscriptions you mentioned on the side? What is that about?
So there were inscriptions, or witnesses claim to have seen inscriptions on the Kecksburg UFO that was recovered by the U.S. military.
So okay, wait. Can we talk about what they would have had knowledge of at the time? Would they have known about this Nazi bell thing at the time?
No, because it happened in the. Witkowski published his work after 1997 when he supposedly got this information.
Oh, okay, right. So then this is kind of the more intriguing information, the sighting of...
I'll conclude my story by saying it's a post hoc attribution, but for the time being, the actual story is that witnesses claim to have seen this bell or acorn-shaped craft crash in Kecksburg. You know, a bunch of people saw it. I don't know how many, but a bunch of people saw it. A bunch of people saw the U.S. military haul it away, but before they hauled it away, the witnesses claim to have seen inscriptions around the side of, or the circumference of this bell-type craft.
Okay.
Right? They had a rough idea of how large it was, how tall it was, and some of their details match up with what was described by Witkowski about the bell.
Right, like the 12-foot height.
I don't know if it's necessarily the same. There's a variance in the size of the thing.
Sure.
So you can easily say, well, yeah, that's a match, right?
Right.
Hey, it has inscriptions. So did the Nazi bell.
Oh, they didn't say anything in particular about the inscription?
No, they just said it has inscriptions.
Oh,
or I think I saw inscriptions.
I see. Okay.
And I think it was I don't know, between yada yada feet tall and so feet wide. There's no specific detail about it. Just some anecdotal, kinda matchy stuff between the Kecksburg UFO and the bell.
Okay.
But UFO conspiracy theorists match it up completely because it's the same thing.
Right.
No, it ain't. Unless you can give me specific information and specific details that can be verified and demonstrated. How can you tell me it's the same goddamn thing?
You're always approaching it as if you're angry. I guess you're angry that people believe things.
No, I'm not angry that people believe things. I'm angry that misinformation gets transmitted and
this is what I'm saying.
Represented
as fact.
As truth.
Yeah, exactly.
As verified.
That's what I'm angry about.
Yeah,
the fact that
it's represented as if it were verified or verifiable.
Precisely. Yeah. That's what bothers me.
So it's I guess the complaint is kind of that people are very, very poor scientists. Like, they have whatever mechanisms they're figured shit out with.
I mean, science is pretty much explicitly to get around our natural instincts and tendencies
and biases.
To just go with our biases and with our heuristics and little psychological shortcuts.
Well, in a sense, we shouldn't have those tendencies. Our tendency should be, in a sense,
because what's useful isn't always what's true.
Right. I mean, sure, like, maybe we shouldn't have them, but we do. Like, we do have those tendencies, and we do have those biases. And, like, the scientific method is meant to circumvent those, right? It has built-in safety mechanisms so that it avoids passing through those tendencies to arrive at what can be reasonably assumed to be the most likely cause or explanation for a thing. So when you say we're poor scientists... Yeah.
Well, when I'm saying we're poor scientists, I'm saying you're critical of people being poor scientists, believing things that there is no proof of. Like, this upsets you. Right?
Yeah, it upsets me that people haven't been taught critical thinking faculties as much as they should have been. It also bothers me that, like I said before, misinformation is portrayed as factual when it isn't. And that's becoming more and more problematic in the digital age, when bullshit can just easily spread. Like this whole anti-vaxxer movement, or the flat earthers, for example. Those are direct results of people just not being critical and just absorbing shit and not thinking about it.
Yeah, that's a particularly difficult one because it was like a lying scientist in that case, for example.
Yeah, that's.
So that caused a lot of shit, like a big ripple right there that's still in effect, basically.
Yeah, measles making a comeback.
Yeah.
New York City having to implement mandatory vaccinations and declaring an emergency.
Yeah.
You know, this is the kind of dangerous shit that misinformation can
the general
in.
uprising of Nazis again.
Yeah.
For reals. Again, like it's unbelievable.
At what point do we
I met someone who asked me, do we know for sure that Hitler was a bad guy?
What?
What?
Yeah, I met someone recently who asked that.
Wow.
A,
Yeah.
what the fuck? B, what the fuck? C,
So that
yeah,
just,
he was.
No, but that's what shows you, or what demonstrates the amount of disinformation that just flies around online, and people, if they hear one thing often enough, like
But
that,
I feel
like
like
that
that-
the Holocaust is exaggerated, or
Yeah, I feel like that's demonstrating
know.
like a general mistrust of all information. Like, who knows what this person believes? You
Well,
know,
that's
and
the-
do I
that's the
really
negative
have to
side.
drive on this side of the road? You know,
and I think that's actually a deliberate thing. The idea of making all information suspect or untrustworthy to people, but by certain interests. Certain interests want to basically disarm people against being able. This sounds really conspiratorial, actually. What I'm saying
no,
here,
but what you're saying is,
but like some of the stuff we've seen from.
we're gonna want proof after it.
From the Russian propagandists that have been caught and interviewed and
The Russian
like
lizard
the one
people,
today
yes,
who was just sent back or sent to jail because of infiltrating right-wing tendency groups and kind of nudging them to be a little bit more pro-Russia and all that stuff.
So we know that they're explicitly trying to erode trust in the establishment media and play different sides of an issue against each other. So they'll actually put out propaganda both for who they want to get in, but also they'll put out propaganda for the other side that they aren't necessarily supportive of, but they just know that the clash between between these two sides will cause more chaos.
Destroy all things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of, this shit, like a shit disturber whispering in both people's ears.
Yeah.
Just pitting them against each other and seeing the chaos that results from it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing, right?
That said, stories like these and like, in my pre 9/11 memory, I had a very different kind of experience or perspective on these kind of stories. They were just super fun and intriguing, like the X-Files or any other kind of like weird but maybe true kind of
Are you
kind of thing, like
you're
it was
finding
super
yourself,
entertaining and super compelling.
Are you finding yourself less able to enjoy things that aren't necessarily true now? Because
A little bit, because I find myself now suspecting some kind of double motive for these kind of stories. They're not just being put out as like, maybe that's kind of interesting and funny and cool to consider as a possibility. No. Now you know that there's probably some troll farm out there that's deliberately pushing this out there to make some group look bad or another.
Right.
Yeah, like pre 9/11, my attitude towards this UFO conspiracy would have had a much different tone than today that I'm expressing, right? I wouldn't have been pissed off at it. I wouldn't have been pissed off at the story. I would have been like, well, that's interesting. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But,
it's true.
But now it's just one more element of bullshit that people are absorbing without thinking about it, and that pisses me off. It just pisses me off.
It's funny because in a sense it does amount to a closing down of conversation sort of thing.
Yeah.
Things aren't fun like they used to be, boys and girls. We used to have a good time and talk about fun things that weren't true.
Are we
but it
now
wasn't
just
threatening.
talking like how the older generation used to always go, hey, things were better in the 50s, man.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, yes, that's right.
We never used to lock our doors growing up.
Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I had nothing to say with my old man voice.
No?
That's
So you just went with the noises that kind of sound like...
Well, visually I had the no teeth thing going on.
Shaking my fist at that
Old
cloud.
man angry at cloud, yeah.
So what do you guys think about this story?
Same thing as you. I think the exact same thing as you.
Well, that was easy. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's like it's made up whole cloth by this one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it was so recent, actually, because he did this not that long ago. When did he...
But what I wonder is if he can make up a story this compelling, why doesn't he just be an actual like author or something and make up a bunch of other compelling stories like this, or actually
well, I'm pretty sure he is Dean Koontz. Is he not Dean
like
Koontz?
Is he really making more money doing like
the talk
a
show
half
story?
dozen YouTube videos, YouTube interviews with random other podcasters, or would he make more money if he just like
he hasn't called us yet?
Like, if this got made into a feature film starring Vin Diesel or something, he would have made a lot more. Yeah, I'd want Nick Cage. You know,
Nick Cage.
I'm pretty sure he did make that movie. We just didn't care. Yeah, it was one of his Christian movies.
Yeah. Like, next is actually Die Glock movie, and
which one is next? Is that the airplane?
That's the one where he can travel through time somehow.
Oh okay. Yeah, the airplane movie.
In a bell. Is it
but
a bell?
not in a bell. That's
the
thing. No.
The airplane movie is left behind.
It was still too top secret at that point, so they could.
This is pre-1997.
They could kind of play with the story, with everything about the story, except for the physical object.
Let's see. It was not a bell. It was a. I'm trying to think of something alternative to a bell.
Wasn't it a remote control? Oh no, that's Click.
That's Click. That's Adam Sandler. You're getting Adam Sandler and Nicolas Cage.
Am I nuts, or is that an easy mistake to make, to mix up
Adam
Next
Sandler
and Click?
and Nicolas Cage?
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that.
I always get those two movies confused.
I always get those two movies confused.
That and Santa Claus. I always get that one.
The Santa Claus.
Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Okay. And which other one? Oh, and Next and Click.
And all of the Nicolas Cage movies.
Santa Claus, Next and Click. Yeah, they're identical.
Very, very interchangeable, really.
Can we get back to the Nazis?
Okay, yeah.
I was trying to be as absurd as possible. It just came off really fucking unentertaining.
That's fair. This is an absurd topic to be discussing.
I should just resort to my peanut adult voice now. Peanuts. Wah, 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 wah.
That's your Peanuts voice.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah. So what did you want to get back to the Nazis about?
I don't know. I really don't have much to go on for this episode.
Oh, okay.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah.
It just seems like it's so far-fetched. It's such a far-fetched idea. At first, the story started off, innocently enough. There was a secret Nazi project. Might have been propellant, whatever. Like you were saying earlier. Could have been a part of a bigger device.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe. But then it turned into a time machine. How did it get from that to a time machine?
Yeah.
What's the process?
Maybe the time machine thing only came up when the Kecksburg thing happened, and the idea of these two, not after the Kecksburg thing happened, but after the guy in 1997 or whatever started talking about the Nazi bell, and then somebody saw the comparison of these acorn/bell shaped.
So some
objects.
guy in his basement with a map with a piece of red thread.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Like he was reading some kind of conspiracy theory anthology and
just coming off
and made that connection and then said, "Oh, well, if they are the same object, then they traveled through time."
They must have traveled through time. Yes.
That would have been hilarious.
Are we recording right now?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Traveled through time.
Traveled through time.
Through time.
We just traveled through time a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one weird thing that the guy mentioned, or that I thought was weird when he mentioned it, he was talking about how this technology comes out of the focus that the Nazis had on quantum physics as opposed to regular Newtonian and Einsteinian physics.
Wait a minute. They were focused on what?
Quantum physics,
right?
Because relativistic physics was definitely not being kind of.
It was it was in its infancy.
By them. It was in its infancy, and it was coined by a Jew, right? So.
Yeah. There's that whole thing.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if there's some some material to talk about there.
Is there?
What?
Well, it's sort of it opens it up, right? To the imagination, I guess, right? It was the unexplored at that point, and still sort of.
I mean, is there
conceptually an open concept and things? You know, it's kind of over our heads and and open to all these possibilities that we don't quite grasp and stuff. You know, so yeah, makes it more fun. You know,
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I that's probably just another layer to sort of confound and.
Well,
it's quantum physics. Nobody really knows anything about that.
So therefore, God. I mean, time travel.
Reiki God. Yeah.
This whole thing is a giant argument from ignorance, if you think about it. Right?
Pretty much.
I don't understand what happened. Nazis are mysterious, and they had secrets. Therefore, it's true. Well, no, sorry, that's not how it works. No.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can think about Project Paperclip or Operation Paperclip rather. This is an operation that.
What's Operation Paperclip? Can you elaborate?
Well, so this was what the Allies did at the end of the war. It was a plan basically to absorb a whole bunch of the researchers and scientists and engineers from the Nazis. And bring them over to the U.S. So, Werner von Braun,
von Braun,
who made the V2 rocket. The U.S. basically took him on, and he's kind of at some point a progenitor of the space program in the States.
Yeah.
Right.
The Apollo program was almost entirely attributed to his success.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so...
And he started making... he started off by making Nazi superweapons, like rockets for the Nazis.
Huh.
Yeah, and that's why he was absorbed by the Americans, is because he was one of these guys working on super secret Nazi technology programs, right? But what that gets me thinking is so we have examples now. Project Paperclip is now a known, not project, but Operation Paperclip is now a known thing, and we know where some of these researchers went and what we got out of it.
Yeah.
And none of the stuff that we know we got out of it really violates conventional kind of progression of technology and science.
Yeah. Unless it's just still secret.
That we saw in the 20th century. Yeah, unless it's still kept secret, but yeah.
Which it could be possible when it comes to air travel. That's always the fun one, right? You know, that air travel is still being explored and that there's secret means of travel. I look over at Mark, just your face. It's hilarious.
Go on.
Well, you just seemed you had this face of where are you going with this? And the answer is fucking nowhere.
I'm just listening intently.
Nowhere.
That's all.
Listening intently.
Just listening intently.
He's not judging.
No, not at all.
Oh.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, I mean, isn't the fact that we now know about Operation Paperclip
You're basically saying we know what the good scientists did. We took them and we did good things with it, and we went to the moon.
Well, I don't know about good things with it. I'm just saying we know what the main things were with it. We haven't actually seen some kind of science-shattering jump of technology in the 20th century after the war that can't be explained by conventional progression of technology.
There's nothing anachronistic about the progression of technology. There's nothing out of place. Everything just kind of flows.
There's not a sudden disjointed jump in the technology right out.
And you'd think if one of these scientists that they brought over during Operation Paperclip had been working on
something like anti-gravity or time travel or...
Then we would start seeing hints of it in today's technology.
Could we use, for example, the repression of the electric car as evidence that technologies, big jumps of technology are hidden and taken away from
Well, the thing
society.
about the electric car, though, is like it wasn't an out-of-place jump in technology, because if you follow the progression of how it developed, it goes back to like the 1950s.
Yeah.
It was like a badly kept secret.
Yeah.
Though, right?
I don't mean it being kept secret. I'm saying its development being squashed. sort of.
Quashed and
Yeah.
held
There's-
back.
Quashed? Is that the word?
I have a
Quashed?
personal story about this kind of thing, interestingly enough. Like, my dad, when he was growing up, one of his neighbors was this kind of, I'm going to call him a kooky scientist. I think he was a chemist or something.
Okay.
But he developed a motorcycle that ran on water. And nobody believed him. Like, nobody believed that he actually made this thing. So he brought it out while my dad was watching, and he's like, go ahead, try it out. Pour water into the tank. And so they did, and it runs perfectly.
Right.
And within a couple of days of this demonstration, they see some people, typical weird, like, black suit dudes showing
Shut
up
up.
at this guy's house.
You've got a Men in Black neighbor story.
And then, the guy disappears.
Yeah, well, there you
Like,
go.
he moved out a couple of weeks later or something.
You have your
they
very
bought him
own
out.
story
Yeah.
that is as close to evidence as you can kind of get for
Well,
something
we,
like this.
We know that that certain things are repressed by other interests, particularly the oil industry. They don't want the electric car to become a thing, right? Because that'll ruin their profit margin or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a secret. That's not, outlandish information.
Right.
It's something that happens, and we know it does.
Yeah.
But to get back to the electric car idea, like, that was, like I said, not. It's not like, oh my God, this is super secretive, and we finally know about it. How dare you keep the secret?
No, I guess I was using it there as the example of being quashed.
Yeah.
Is that the word, quashed? Because I said squashed. I was just going full on squash.
I think you can
Quashed.
say either.
Um,
Quashed, I think, is more of a legalese term.
Oh, okay.
Like, you quash a motion, I think, or
Oh, I see.
stuff like that. It means to kill.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's not literally kill, because
To silence or put to bed
stop or
or stop, cease.
yeah.
Welcome to Thesaurus Junction. I don't know. It's
Well,
just,
that's a cool story, though. This story of
Yeah.
the motorcycle that ran on water that
Yeah.
you saw.
yeah.
You
Well,
saw
I
it.
didn't.
Oh,
My
you
dad
didn't
saw
see it. Oh, your dad saw it. Okay.
Yeah, my dad.
Oh, well, forget about it.
Yeah, and
Whatever.
your dad
Who's
also
dad?
saw the ghost at the front door.
Your
my
friggin' dad.
We just
Your dad sounds like a real winner.
Where's the proof? You have
I
a
think
father.
your dad's a good con man.
We're gonna need to see some birth certificates to even, first of all,
Do you even have
believe
a
that
father?
he's your father.
I
Yeah,
kinda-
do you
I
have a
kinda-
father? I don't believe it.
I kind of want to meet your dad.
Yeah, like, he told us this story many times. Like, it's like I think my uncle also knows about it. Like, he knows the guy's name who was bought out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He also invented
We should
flubber.
get that name from him and
I will
do
do
some
my best.
research.
I'd love to know what happened to that guy.
Yeah.
And
My grandpa has a story sort of similar where back in the 60s, he met a guy who was dating his sister or somebody he knew, and the guy worked for some people, and he was sort of like a weird, shady Man in Black type of character. And apparently, he saw in his car, and his car basically had, I guess, what we would think is kind of normal looking nowadays, but it was like a fully lit up dashboard with like screens and things like that. But this is back in the 60s when, you should really only have like basically a dial AM, FM radio.
So he had
FM,
he had a
if they even
high-tech
have FM
dashboard.
at that time. Yeah, he had like a high-tech lit up dashboard.
so they Star Trek Discovery to his car.
Yeah, and yeah.
I don't want to.
He saw it once, and
I regret what I said because I
Never saw
actually
it,
really enjoy Star Trek Discovery, and I really hate it when people make that like, oh my god, it's not like it was in the 60s. How dare you? Like, no, fuck that. Discovery's awesome. Shout out to Star Trek Discovery. If CBS All Access would like to sponsor the show.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting story.
Yeah. So that's another repression of technology.
Yeah. Which
possible
makes a lot
story.
of sense, and it does happen. So
Who knows?
So in a sense, there's evidence of reasons why we would not know.
Or why we would believe these kind of stories too.
Yeah, why we're more likely to believe them.
Because everybody's got an anecdote like this.
Yeah.
Right. Except for you, Luke.
Yeah.
I have no anecdotes. Nothing.
Somehow you don't have one of these anecdotes.
No.
But what separates a baseless anecdote from a verifiable anecdote is the paper trail. Like you can find supporting evidence to back up the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if I got the guy's name that I was for my dad's story, we can trace back this guy's actual existence and like what
Where
he
he
did
moved
and where he
to.
moved to, what he developed, what he worked on. Like we can find that kind of evidence. But if you want to suggest that the same kind of repression applies to the Nazi Bell, there is no supporting evidence. There is no paper trail to back up anything that's being said about it. Nothing to suggest that it's just disappeared into another one of these like deep dark holes that the government just shoved
Sitting
into.
right next to the Ark of the Covenant. In,
Yeah, in that warehouse.
Melting faces.
giant warehouse.
It's still melting faces after all these years.
Turning plants to goo. Yeah. I would love for there to be an actual giant warehouse of really creepy shit.
Yeah.
The Indiana Jones warehouse kind of thing. Yeah.
It's like under Area 51 or something.
Yeah, you have to use the staff of Ra to get there or whatever.
Well, I mean, it would make sense also that there would be some sort of storage warehouse of crazy shit like that, if there is crazy shit like that.
If there is crazy shit like if these stories of UFO recovery are true, you'd think they got to be storing them somewhere, right?
Yeah, like the stuff they just don't understand archaeologically,
Right. Yeah.
What is this? And so it's just not spoken of, because how would they speak of it?
Until the aliens come down to destroy us during Independence Day and suddenly you're whisked down to Area 51 to backwards engineer it.
We're just getting our old cars.
And you were saying I don't watch movies.
That doesn't count as a movie. That's one of those
The
movies-
second one
like,
doesn't count as a
find
movie.
Those like a Michael Bay movie. Is that a Michael Bay movie? I'm not even sure, but it's like I can't watch them. I just go to sleep. There's there's another one too where they go off to kill an asteroid.
Oh yeah, that
in
one was
space.
terrible.
Two of them. There was Deep Impact and there was Armageddon.
Armageddon.
So Armageddon is the one I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
that's
Like,
the terrible
I
one.
go
Deep
off,
Impact
I
was
turn
actually
off.
pretty good.
The one with Morgan Freeman. Deep Impact.
With Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've seen that one before.
Yeah,
that was fine.
good. That was
So
nice.
there's some that don't turn me off. Like, yes, they can make good movies, like that are good bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
But the Armageddon, like I
that
turn
was-
off.
that was
I
awful.
can't watch
Yeah.
it. I can't take it in.
No.
Like if
I
I were
paid to
if
see
I
it
were
in the
to be able
theaters
to
with
stay
friends,
conscious,
and I
I would
walked
not
out.
be able to.
I paid to see
remember
it
anything.
twice.
What? You're like the opposite of us?
Prove it.
What? No.
You're like the opposite of us.
No.
You pay to see shit movies twice.
It wasn't my fault. The first time I went with friends, I'm like, okay, whatever.
Well,
the second time I
you
was
choose your
dating some
friends.
girl, my first girlfriend, we're like, let's go see a movie. How about Armageddon? Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
It is true. These
Okay,
things
you got
happen.
an
I
excuse.
did see Fast and the Furious in the theater. Hanging
oh,
out with.
no.
What are my Zeller's friends doing tonight? Maybe I will hang out with you. Oh, okay. I guess I'll continue to hang out with you, and it amounted to Fast and
I mean,
Furious. at the
often
theater.
seeing even shit movies with friends at the cinema is fun.
All of the Star Wars movies. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
All of the Star Wars movies. I don't think we're allowed to talk
we
about
just upset the 4 people that listen to us. Kind of.
Yeah, we just lost some subscribers
we
there.
lost them.
The 4 subscribers.
You guys won't even be listening to it anymore.
I hate this show.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
The Nazi Bell would make a great bad movie.
It would, yeah. I would
watch it.
Yeah.
Especially if
Well,
Nick Cage.
you know, if they had made it in the past, they would make it again. But since no one made it in the past, they're not going to make it in the future because
That's
only
right, because we
only
only
do
make
remakes.
shitty fucking
I just said
reboots.
remakes.
Roommates?
It was like a mix of like reboot,
Reboot and
remake.
remake.
Okay, well, we're completely off topic. Let's wrap this shit up.
Remooks.
Final thoughts on this bullshit idea of the Nazi Bell.
I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it too.
What happened?
Sorry, you're the opposite of us, Mark. I totally
Were
believe
you
it.
here during the entire episode? Did you sleep through it? Was I imagining things?
Well, no, for myself, Jesus told me to believe in it, so
Oh my god.
I believe in it.
Yeah, I just think these kind of stories are fun and intriguing, and it's easy to fall down a rabbit hole like this.
I loved your comment earlier about how, in a sense, there was a leisureliness to thoughts like this in the past,
Yeah.
and how, in
Yeah.
a sense, now you can't really, in a sense, tamper with believing in something that might not be true because it could be dangerous. Like someone might go with
Yeah.
it and kill someone, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't just spread a story and be like, hey, this is cool. Because
Yeah,
then someone else is going to be like,
Because
I
there's
believe
always
that.
some credulous fucking asshole online that wants to take it way too far.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine if in 1997 we had access to social media the same way we do today, and Witkowski publishes his book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the shitstorm that this thing would create?
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, secret Nazi UFO! I would
Oh
just,
my god!
oh my
Oh
god!
my god!
It, like,
Oh my god! Goosebump books! Oh no!
that is exactly what I was going for. Thank you. But like, it would be insane. It would be viral on Twitter, and everyone would be talking about it. And, like, it would be the same thing as if the alien autopsy footage came out today.
Yeah.
Right. It would just be ludicrous.
So how long would you say something like that would last nowadays? Like, oh yeah, huge news for weeks,
Like 5
for a
minutes
month?
until Trump tweeted something.
Right.
Yeah. I've got the best UFOs. They're amazing. Bigly.
Yeah, everything seems to go viral now, but it also seems to go
Dies
viral for
quickly.
much shorter.
Yeah.
Well, does anything stick around for a long period? Like, what sort of a thing sticks
You know what,
around, like,
ironically-
might penetrate a little deeper kind of thing? You know?
Our time traveling Trump topic that we once did that actually came back a couple of
No
weeks
way.
ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah. People were talking about it again all of a sudden for some reason.
Are we gonna have to revisit that episode? I hope so,
Well,
because it
there
was a hit.
it's probably just the tie-in of Trump. Like, people want
Yeah.
to hear some absurd, crazy shit about Trump. Like, let's...
We should start tagging the word Trump in every episode just to get the views.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be cheap like that. Let's fuck people over. Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you in, Jill?
I'm in.
All right. Can we make money off dead children in any way? Work that in?
We're not doing that.
Holy shit, your leaps, dude.
I don't know how you got there, but we're not doing that.
Vibes just purely natural for me to
One
go
unethical
that
thing
step.
is just like any other unethical thing.
Absolutely. I try to be,
Cheating with your tags on your
I
YouTube
try to-
videos is the exact same thing as destroying children.
I just mean that I try to be ethical about what
Oh my
I'm
God.
unethical about. So to me,
Right.
the leap to... They're already dead. They're already dead children. That's all
This
I'm
is a
saying.
spectacular example of like false comparisons, which is
I'm not
awesome
killing
because
you.
we're going to be talking about logical fallacies next time.
Yeah,
Are
let's
we?
go
Let's-
through.
Good lead in
There we
So
go.
there you go.
Next time
on
on
Critical Junction.
Critical Junction.
Logical
You had to think what the name of this podcast was.
I was going hammy hamster. I was like, what is her name again?
All right.
It's not because it's not hammy.
The
show that
the
we're
show?
the show that we're doing, I guess. Anyway, Luke, your final thoughts on the UFO thing that the bell with the Nazis and the hey and they'll even.
I thought you gave your final thought.
Yeah, no,
Did
I
you-
already
oh,
gave it. You
okay.
missed it, I guess. I mean, it was good.
I
It
was-
was fucking good. It was some sweet shit. I ain't repeating that. That's
His
it.
final
That was a one-time
thoughts was
thing.
to reiterate my earlier thought.
That's cheating. I want an actual final thought,
No, well, I can't remember what it was because it was final, and now it's gone.
and it was a thought.
It was
so.
a thought, and
Yeah.
there
They're
it is, and
fleeting.
there it was, and it's fleeting. Yep, everything is.
All right. Well, mine is this is total fucking
Yes.
bullshit. So really, like, don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yeah.
I guess would be a good way to wrap this up, because it can lead to some really dangerous
Yeah,
stuff.
and that always makes me ask the question: how can you possibly believe anything nowadays? And what do you believe and what do you not believe? And because really, the foundation of knowledge in general is pretty shaky, you know. So
Well, we'll talk about that during next week's or the next episode. So, yeah, stay tuned, everybody. It'll be awesome.
yeah,
This has been Critical Junction, episode 59. I'm Mark.
I'm Margot Robbie. No, I'm Luke. Still Luke. It's too
Got
bad.
Margot Robbie on the brain.
No.
Nope.
Nope, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Just sign off.
I'm chill.
As always, thanks for listening. Until next time, keep thinking critically.